The twin sons of Kepler Forfordby cast their golden light across the peaceful mining colony of New Haven. Commander Zara Voss stood on the observation deck of the orbital station, watching cargo ships drift lazily between the planet's surface and the space elevators that stretched into the void. Everything was exactly as it should be: quiet, orderly, safe. Another beautiful day in paradise, said Lieutenant Marcus Chen, joining her at the viewing port. His reflection showed a man in his 30s, with kind eyes and a scar across his left cheek from a training accident years ago. Hard to believe we're on the edge of contested space, Zara nodded, but something felt wrong. After 15 years in the Colonial Defense Force, she'd learned to trust her instincts. The silence from the outer sensor buoys had been to complete for the past week. No pirates, no raiders, no unauthorized ships at all. In this part of the galaxy, that usually meant trouble was coming. Status report from the mining platforms, she asked. All green. Platform 7 just hit another rich vein of quantum crystals. The corporate boys back on Earth are going to be thrilled. Marcus paused, studying her expression. You're worried about something. Before Zara could respond, the station's emergency klaxons began to wail. Red lights flashed across the command center as officers rushed to their stations. The main display screen lit up with incoming data streams. Commander, called out Ensign Sarah Kim from the sensor station. We're picking up massive gravitational distortions in Sector 77 Alpha. Something big is coming out of hyperspace. Zara's blood ran cold. New Haven had no scheduled rivals for another 3 weeks. How big? Displacement reading is. That can't be right. Sarah's voice cracked. Ma'am. It's showing a mass signature larger than our entire station. The main screen shifted to display the sensor data. A swirling vortex of twisted spacetime was forming 50,000 kilometers from the planet. Whatever was coming through was massive and it was coming fast. All hands to battle stations, Zara ordered. Raise shields and power up the defense grid. Send an emergency transmission to Colonial Command. Till then, we have an unidentified vessel of unknown origin approaching New Haven. The hyperspace rift split open like a wound in reality itself. What emerged from that tear in space would haunt the dreams of every person who witnessed it. The ship was enormous, easily 3 kilometers long, and bristling with weapons that looked nothing like any technology in the Colonial Defense Force database. But it was the design that made everyone's blood freeze. The hull was sleek and predatory, painted in deep black with silver accents that seemed to pulse with their own light. Strange symbols covered its surface, symbols that looked almost familiar. But wrong somehow. This wasn't just an alien ship. This was something that should not exist. Commander, whispered Marcus, his voice barely audible over the station's alarm systems. The configuration. It's using human design principles, but the technology is decades beyond anything we have. Zara stared at the massive vessel as it hung motionless in space. Its weapon systems clearly visible, but not yet active. Open a channel. All frequencies. The communications officer nodded. Channel open, Mom. Unknown vessel. This is Commander Zara Voss of the Colonial Defense Force. You are in violation of colonial space. Identify yourself immediately and state your intentions. For long moments, there was only static. Then, a voice emerged from the speakers, a human voice, but one that carried an accent no one recognized. It was refined, almost aristocratic, but with an underlying coldness that made everyone in the command center shiver. Commander Voss. How quaint. I'm Captain Nathaniel Cross of the Terran Imperial Navy. Your little colony has something that belongs to us, and we've come to collect it. Marcus grabbed Zara's arm. Terran Imperial Navy? Commander, there's no such thing. The only human naval force is the Colonial Defense Force. The mysterious captain's laughter echoed through the comm system. Oh, but there is, Lieutenant Chen. We've been watching your pathetic little colonies for quite some time, building our strength, waiting for the right moment. This is impossible. Zara said into the comm. The only human settlements are the registered colonies of the Terran Federation. Who are you really? We are what humanity was meant to become, Captain Cross replied. What we did become, in the dark spaces between the stars. While you played at being explorers and miners, we became conquerors. And now, we've come home. The massive ship's weapons systems suddenly blazed to life, casting an eerie blue glow across its hull. Energy signatures unlike anything in the colonial database painted themselves across the station's sensors. Warning shots only, Captain Cross announced. We're not here to destroy you yet. We're here for the quantum crystals your miners have been so helpfully extracting. Hand them over, and we might let your colony live. Zera's mind raced. Quantum crystals were the most valuable substance in known space, used to power everything from starship engines to planetary defense systems. New Haven's mining operation had discovered the largest deposit ever found, enough to power the entire colonial fleet for decades. And if we refuse, she asked, then you'll discover why the Terran Imperial Navy is the apex predator of this galaxy. The tension in the command center was suffocating. Every officer waited for Zera's decision, knowing that the wrong choice could doom not just their station, but the entire colony below. But before she could respond, something even more impossible happened. The space around the mysterious warship began to shimmer, and 3 more vessels identical to the first materialized from nowhere. Sweet mother of. Marcus breathed. Commander, Sarah called out, her voice shaking. I'm reading for more ships. Decloaking on the far side of the planet. We're surrounded. Captain Cross's voice returned, now carrying a note of dark amusement. As I was saying, Commander, this is not a negotiation. You have 1 hour to transfer all quantum crystal reserves to our cargo vessels. Refuse, and we'll demonstrate why. Humanity's lost children have become the most feared force in the galaxy. The communication cut off, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Zera looked at the tactical display showing 7 massive warships surrounding their defenseless colony. Each ship was more powerful than anything the colonial defense force had ever built. Commander, Marcus said quietly, what do we do? Zera stared at the display, her mind working furiously. Whoever these people were, they were clearly human, but they were also clearly hostile. And they had technology that shouldn't exist. We need answers, she said finally. And we need them fast, because something tells me this is just the beginning. #. Chapter 2. Echoes of the past in the archives deep beneath New Haven's government complex. Dr. Elena Vasquez worked frantically through historical records that hadn't been accessed in decades. The colony's head xenoarchaeologist had been pulled from her research into the planet's ancient ruins the moment the mysterious ships appeared. There has to be something, she muttered, scanning through files on her holographic display. Ships don't just appear out of nowhere with human technology that's decades ahead of our own. Her assistant, Tom Bradley, looked up from his terminal. Dr. Vasquez, I found something. A classified report from the early colonial period, about 50 years ago. It mentions a research expedition that went missing in the Void Sector. Elena's blood chilled. The Void Sector was a region of space where several star systems had simply disappeared. No wreckage, no distress calls, no explanation. The colonial government had classified the entire area as off-limits. After 3 survey missions vanished without a trace. What kind of research expedition? Project Exodus, a joint military scientific mission to explore the dark matter formations in the Void Sector. The lead scientist was Dr. Nathaniel Cross. Elena's hands froze over her keyboard. Cross, that's the name of the captain who contacted the station. Tom nodded grimly. According to this, Dr. Cross was working on experimental space folding technology, the kind that could theoretically allow faster-than-light travel without traditional hyperspace gates. And he disappeared 50 years ago, Elena said, along with his entire expedition. Meanwhile, back on the orbital station, Commander Voss was having a very different conversation with her superiors. The communication from Colonial Command had finally come through, and the news was not good. Commander, came the voice of Admiral Harrison, his weathered face appearing on the main screen. We've reviewed your situation reports. Our analysis suggests these vessels are using some form of advanced cloaking technology combined with weapons, systems that are at least 30 years beyond our current capabilities. Sir, The captain identified himself as Nathaniel Cross. We're checking historical records now, but that name appears in classified files from the early colonial period. Admiral Harrison's expression darkened. Cross, I remember that name. He was a brilliant scientist, but he was also obsessed with the idea that humanity was too weak to survive in a hostile galaxy. He believed we needed to become something more aggressive. Sir, are you saying this could actually be the same person? I'm saying that if it is, we're dealing with someone who has 50 years of unknown technological development at his disposal. Someone who was already dangerous when he disappeared. The Admiral paused, studying something off-screen. Commander, I'm sending you additional intelligence. It's classified at the highest levels. But given the situation, you need to know what you're dealing with. The data package that arrived moments later painted a picture that made Zera's worst fears seem optimistic. Project Exodus hadn't been just a research mission, it had been a secret military program designed to create a new class of human super soldiers and advanced spacecraft. Dr. Cross had been working on theories about human evolution in space, believing that the harsh conditions of the void could force humanity to develop new capabilities. His research had included experiments with genetic modification, cybernetic enhancement, and technologies that pushed the boundaries of known physics. Commander, Marcus said, reading over her shoulder. Look at this. Cross believed that humanity's greatest weakness was our tendency toward cooperation and diplomacy. He thought we needed to become more predatory. Zera felt a chill run down her spine. A philosopher warrior leading an army of evolved humans with technology we can't match. And they want our quantum crystals. Why the crystals specifically? Asked Zera from her sensor station. They clearly have power sources we don't understand. Before anyone could answer, the comm system crackled to life again. But this time, it wasn't Captain Cross's voice. It was a woman, speaking in the same strange accent. Colonial Defense Force Station. This is Commander Lydia Cross of the Imperial vessel Nemesis. I'm requesting permission to board your facility. Under flag of truce, Zera exchanged glances with Marcus. Cross, are you related to Captain Cross? I am his daughter, and I believe we need to talk. The tension in the command center was electric. Allowing an enemy aboard the station would be suicide, but the alternative might be watching their entire colony burn. State your intentions. Zera said, my intentions are to prevent a war that will destroy both our peoples. You see, Commander, there's something my father hasn't told you about why we're really here. The mystery deepened. Why would the daughter of the enemy captain want to meet with them? And what secret was so important that she was willing to risk her life to reveal it? I'm listening. Zera said, not over an open channel. What I have to tell you will change everything you think you know about the Colonial Federation, about Project Exodus, and about the real reason the Void Sector was declared off-limits. Marcus leaned in close to Zera. It could be a trap, or it could be our only chance to understand what we're dealing with. Zera replied, Commander Cross, you have my permission to board, but you come alone, and you come unarmed. Agreed. I'm launching a shuttle now, and Commander Voss, when you hear what I have to tell you, you'll understand why some secrets are worth dying for. As the shuttle bay prepared to receive their mysterious visitor, Zera couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to learn something that would change the course of human history. The question was whether they would survive long enough to act on that knowledge. Chapter 3. The daughter's Tal Commander Lydia Cross was not what anyone expected. She looked to be in her early 30s, with sharp features and the kind of presence that commanded attention. But it was her eyes that made everyone in the conference room uncomfortable. They were too old to knowing for someone her age. You're staring, she said to Marcus as she took her seat across from Zera. I imagine I'm not what you expected from the daughter of a man who disappeared 50 years ago. The timeline doesn't work, Zera said bluntly, if your father vanished during Project Exodus, you shouldn't exist. Lydia smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Time works differently in the Void Sector, Commander. What you call 50 years, we experienced as 15. And my father, well, he's not quite the same man who left colonial space all those decades ago. She activated a small holographic projector. displaying images that made everyone in the room lean forward. The first image showed a planet unlike anything in the colonial database, a world of crystal spires and floating cities, all seemingly constructed from the same quantum crystal material that New Haven mined. This is Terminus Prime, the capital of the Terran Empire. My father didn't just disappear into the void sector, he found something there. Something that had been waiting for humanity to become worthy of it. What kind of something? Elena asked. The archaeologist had been brought up from the planet's surface for this meeting, and her scientific curiosity was overriding her fear. The ancients, Lydia said simply, the species that built the quantum crystal formations throughout this galaxy. They've been gone for millions of years, but their technology remains, and it chooses its inheritors carefully. The next image showed humans, but they were changed. Taller, more graceful, with an almost ethereal quality to their features. Some showed obvious cybernetic enhancements, while others seemed to pulse with internal energy. The ancients' technology doesn't just provide power, Lydia continued. It provides evolution, physical enhancement, mental expansion, lifespans measured in centuries rather than decades. My father was the first to undergo the transformation, and he became something more, Marcus asked, smarter, stronger, capable of seeing patterns and possibilities that normal humans cannot comprehend, but also harder. The process strips away what he calls weakness, empathy, compassion, the ability to see other species as equals. Zara felt pieces clicking into place. That's why he's demanding the quantum crystals. He wants to transform more humans. Not transform, Lydia corrected. Recruit. The Empire has been growing for decades, taking in humans from isolated colonies, pirates, outcasts, anyone willing to undergo the enhancement process. But the quantum crystals here on New Haven are different. They're pure, unprocessed. With them, my father could enhance thousands of humans at once. And you're telling us this because? Lydia's facade cracked slightly, showing something that might have been pain. Because I've seen what the Empire becomes when it has unlimited resources. I've seen the species they've enslaved, the worlds they've stripped bare. My father believes he's making humanity stronger. But he's really making us into something monstrous. Elena, lean forward. The ruins we've been studying on the planet's surface. They're ancient technology, aren't they? A research station, Lydia confirmed. The ancients were studying the quantum crystal formations, trying to understand why they had certain effects on organic life. Effects that my father has learned to exploit. What kind of effects? Zara asked, though she was beginning to suspect. She didn't want to know. The crystals don't just enhance individuals, Lydia said. They create a form of telepathic link between enhanced humans. My father can sense the thoughts and emotions of every enhanced person in the Empire. He's not just their leader, he's their living god. The implications were staggering. An army of enhanced humans, all connected to and controlled by a single individual with 50 years of advanced technology at his disposal. Why are you betraying your own father? Marcus asked. Because he's not my father anymore, Lydia said, her voice barely above a whisper. The enhancement process, it changes you, makes you capable of things that would have horrified your original self. I underwent a partial enhancement to serve as an ambassador to an enhanced humans. I retain enough of my original personality to remember what we used to be human. She said simply, the Empire calls itself human, but we're really something else now, something that sees other species as resources to be exploited and an enhanced humans as pets. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. Finally, Zara spoke. What do you want from us? I want to stop my father from getting the quantum crystals, but I can't do it alone. The Empire's ships are too powerful, and their crews are too loyal. But there might be another way. She activated another holographic display, showing technical schematics of the ancient research station on the planet's surface. The ancients built safeguards into their technology, fail-safes designed to prevent exactly the kind of abuse my father has been perpetrating. If we could reach the station and activate those safeguards, we can disrupt the enhancement process across the entire Empire. And do what to the enhanced humans? Elena asked. Restore them to their original state. Break the telepathic link that binds them to my father. Give them back their free will. Marcus shook his head. It sounds too simple. There has to be a catch. Lydia's expression darkened. There is. Activating the safeguards requires a sacrifice. Someone has to interface directly with the ancient technology, and the process is lethal. You're talking about suicide, Zara said. I'm talking about saving humanity from becoming something it was never meant to be. My father has 7 ships here, but he has hundreds more throughout the Empire. If he gets the quantum crystals from New Haven, he'll have the power to enhance every human in colonial space, whether they want it or not. The weight of the decision was crushing. Trust the daughter of their enemy and risk everything on a desperate gamble, or watch as humanity itself was transformed into something alien and hostile. There's one more thing, Lydia said. My father is planning to begin the assault on your colony in 6 hours. He's giving you time to consider his offer, but he's also using that time to position his forces. If we're going to act, it has to be now. Zara looked around the room at her officers and the civilian scientist. These people were counting on her to make the right choice. But every option seemed to lead to disaster. If we help you, she said finally, what guarantee do we have that you're telling the truth? Lydia reached into her jacket and pulled out a small device. This is a neural interface, designed to allow limited telepathic communication with enhanced humans. Put it on, and you'll be able to sense my emotions, my intentions. You'll know if I'm lying. The device looked harmless enough, but Zara knew that accepting it would be another point of no return. Once she could read Lydia's thoughts, there would be no going back to ignorance. Commander, Marcus said urgently, we're receiving a transmission from the Imperial fleet. They're demanding an answer. Zara looked at the neural interface in Lydia's outstretched hand. Everything was moving too fast, but they were out of time for careful deliberation. Patch the transmission through, she said, and prepare a shuttle for surface deployment. We're going to need to see these ancient ruins for ourselves. As Captain Cross's voice filled the room, demanding an immediate response to his ultimatum, Zara realized they had moved beyond the point where surrender was an option. They were committed now to a course of action that would either save humanity or doom it. The only question was which outcome they would achieve. Chapter 4. The ancient Gambith descent to New Haven's surface was tense and silent. Zara sat across from Lydia in the shuttle's passenger compartment, the neural interface device weighing heavily in her palm. She had decided to trust the enhanced woman, but trust and verification were 2 different things. You're afraid, Lydia observed, watching Zara's hesitation. I'm terrified, Zara admitted, of you, of your father, of what we're about to attempt, but mostly of what happens if we fail. The interface won't hurt you, Lydia said. It's designed to be safe for an enhanced humans. You'll be able to sense my emotional state, my intentions, but you won't be able to read my specific thoughts. Zara activated the device and felt a strange tingling sensation as it adhered to her temple. Immediately, she was flooded with sensations that weren't her own grief, determination, and underneath it all, a deep sense of loss that took her breath away. You really did love him, she said, understanding flooding through her. Your father, before he changed. He was brilliant and kind and funny, Lydia replied, her voice thick with emotion. He used to read me stories about brave explorers discovering new worlds. He never imagined he would become the kind of person who would conquer those worlds. Instead, Marcus piloted the shuttle through the planet's atmosphere, heading for the coordinates of the ancient research station. The site was located in a remote desert region, far from any mining operations or settlements. As they approached, the ruins became visible crystal formations that spiraled up from the planet's surface like frozen tornadoes. It's beautiful, Eleanor breathed, pressing her face to the viewport, and enormous. How did we miss this in our initial surveys? The ancients were masters of concealment, Lydia explained. The structure only becomes visible when approached from a specific angle. Your mining surveys would have flown right over it without seeing anything. They landed near the base of the largest crystal formation, and immediately Zara could feel something in the air, a faint humming that seemed to resonate in her bones. The neural interface was picking up something else too, a sense of vast intelligence sleeping in the crystals around them. The ancient AI is still active, Lydia said, apparently sensing Zara's confusion. It's been dormant for millennia, but it's still functional. That's how we're going to activate the safeguards. They approached the entrance to the station, which appeared to be nothing more than a gap between two crystal formations. But as they drew closer, the crystals began to pulse with a soft blue light, and the gap widened into a doorway. Motion sensors, Elena said, pulling out her scanner. But the technology is unlike anything I've seen. It's not mechanical, it's organic somehow. The ancients didn't build technology, Lydia explained. They grew it. Their entire civilization was based on the symbiotic relationship between organic life and quantum crystal formations. The interior of the station was breathtaking. Corridors of living crystal pulsed with bioluminescent patterns, and the walls themselves seemed to shift and flow like liquid. At the center of the complex, they found what they were looking for, a chamber containing a single, massive crystal formation that hummed with power. The control node, Lydia said. From here, the ancient AI controlled the quantum crystal network throughout the galaxy. If we can interface with it, we can send a signal that will disrupt the enhancement process across the entire empire and kill whoever makes the interface, Zara added. Yes, the quantum energies involved are too intense for organic life to survive. Even enhanced humans couldn't withstand the process. Elena was studying the crystal formation with her scanner, her expression growing more excited by the moment. Commander, this is incredible. The quantum resonance patterns are unlike anything in our database. If we could study this, we might not have the chance, Marcus interrupted. I'm picking up movement on the long-range sensors. Imperial ships are taking positions around the planet. Zara's communicator crackled to life. Commander Voss, this is Captain Cross. I trust you've had time to consider our offer. Your hour is nearly up. We need more time, Zara replied. The quantum crystal reserves are spread across multiple mining platforms. It will take time to gather them. Time is a luxury you no longer possess, Cross replied. You have 30 minutes to begin the transfer, or we will take the crystals by force. The transmission cut off, leaving them in the humming silence of the ancient station. Zara looked at the massive crystal formation, then at Lydia, whose emotional state she could now sense through the neural interface. There's something you haven't told us, she said, about the sacrifice required. Lydia's grief spiked, confirming Zara's suspicion. The process doesn't just require a sacrifice. It requires a specific type of sacrifice, someone who has been enhanced, but who retains enough of their original humanity to interface with the ancient AI. You, Marcus said, you're the only one who can do it, yes, and if I succeed, it will not only shut down the enhancement process, it will also destroy every enhanced human in the Empire, including myself. The enormity of what she was proposing hit them all at once. Lydia wasn't just talking about sacrificing herself, she was talking about committing genocide against her own people. How many? Zara asked. Hundreds of thousands. Maybe millions. The Empire has been growing for decades, taking in humans from across the galaxy. They're not all willing participants, but they're all enhanced now, all connected to the quantum crystal network. And if we don't act, my father will get the crystals from New Haven. He'll enhance every human in colonial space, willing or not. Humanity as you know it will cease to exist. Elena looked up from her scanner. Commander, there might be another way. What if we could modify the safeguard signal? Instead of destroying the enhanced humans, we could just break the telepathic link that binds them to Captain Cross. Is that possible? Zara asked. I don't know. Lydia admitted. The ancient technology is beyond anything we understand. But if there's a chance, we have to try, Zara said. Marcus, how long until Cross's deadline? 15 minutes. Then we're out of time for careful planning, Elena. I need you to study that crystal formation and see if you can determine how to modify the safeguard signal. Lydia, I need you to prepare for the interface. And Marcus, yes. Commander, contact the station. Tell them to prepare for immediate evacuation of all non-essential personnel. If this goes wrong, we're all going to die." As her team scattered to their tasks, Zara stood alone in the chamber, feeling the weight of an impossible decision. They were about to gamble the fate of humanity on a plan that might not work, using technology they didn't understand, with the help of someone who might be lying to them. But as she watched Lydia prepare to sacrifice herself for the chance to save her people, Zara knew they had no choice. Sometimes the only way to save humanity was to risk everything on faith. The crystal formation pulsed brighter, as if sensing the decision that had been made. In 15 minutes, they would either save the human race or watch it die. The countdown had begun. Chapter 5. The price of Salvatore. Ancient control crystal hummed with increasing intensity, as Elena worked frantically to understand its quantum resonance patterns. Her scanner was picking up energy signatures that defied conventional physics, and the mathematical models she was creating looked more like abstract art than scientific data. "It's not technology," she said, her voice filled with wonder and terror. "It's alive. The entire crystal network is a living organism that spans the galaxy." "Can you modify the signal?" Zara asked, checking her chronometer. They had less than 10 minutes before Captain Cross's deadline. "I think so. The safeguard protocols are embedded in the crystal's genetic structure. If I can isolate the specific quantum frequencies that control the enhancement process, I might be able to create a signal that breaks the telepathic link without killing the enhanced humans." Lydia was kneeling beside the control crystal, her hands pressed against its surface. The neural interface device allowed Zara to sense her emotional state, a mixture of hope, fear, and grim determination. "I can feel them," Lydia said softly, "every enhanced human in the Empire. They're all connected, all linked to my father's consciousness. They're not evil people, Commander. They're victims." "How many are fighting the connection?" Zara asked. "More than you might think. The enhancement process is designed to suppress individual will, but some people are naturally resistant. They've been waiting for someone to break the chains." Marcus's voice crackled through the communicator. "Commander, we've got a problem. The Imperial ships are powering up their weapons. I think Captain Cross is done waiting." As if summoned by his words, the ancient chamber filled with the sound of Captain Cross's voice, somehow transmitted directly through the crystal formations around them. "Daughter," he said, his voice carrying a note of disappointment, "I can sense you through the quantum network. You're in the ancient station, aren't you? Trying to activate the safeguards." Lydia's emotional state spiked with guilt and defiance. "Yes, Father. I'm going to stop you. You don't understand what you're doing. The enhancement process isn't slavery, it's evolution. Humanity's next step forward. Without it, we're just another weak species destined to be conquered by stronger ones." "We're not weak," Zara said, speaking into the chamber. "We're human, and that's enough." Captain Cross's laughter echoed through the crystals. "Commander Voss, I should have known you would be involved. Tell me, what has my daughter promised you? A quick death? A chance to save your precious colony?" "She's promised us the truth," Zara replied. "Something you stopped providing the moment you decided to play God with human evolution." God Cross's voice grew cold. "I am what humanity becomes when it stops limiting itself with outdated concepts like morality and compassion. I am the future." Elena looked up from her scanner, her face pale. "I've isolated the quantum frequencies. But Commander, the power requirements are enormous. The interface process, it's going to hurt." "I know," Lydia said, moving to the base of the control crystal. "But it's the only way." "Wait," Zara said. "Elena, what if we could distribute the power load? Instead of one person making the interface, what if multiple people shared the burden?" "Theoretically possible," Elena said, her eyes lighting up. "But it would require multiple neural interfaces, and the synchronization would have to be perfect." "I have 3 more interface devices," Lydia said, pulling them from her jacket. "I brought them in case we needed to link multiple people to the ancient AI." "Then we do this together," Zara said, accepting one of the devices. "Marcus, Elena, you're with us. Commander, I can't ask you to." Lydia began. You're not asking. I'm volunteering. This is my colony, my people, my responsibility. Marcus's voice came through the communicator again. Commander, the Imperial ships are targeting the planet's surface. They're trying to locate us. Then we're out of time, Zara said, activating the neural interface. Everyone link up. Now. The moment the four interfaces connected, the chamber exploded with light and sensation. Zara felt her consciousness expand beyond her physical body, touching the vast network of quantum crystals that stretched across the galaxy. She could sense the enhanced humans of the Empire, thousands of them, all connected to Captain Cross's will. But she could also sense something else, the ancient. Vast and patient and impossibly old, awakening after millennia of slumber. Asterisk, who disturbs the crystal dream? Asterisk, the voice was not heard but felt, resonating through their shared consciousness like the song of dying stars. We're here to activate the safeguards, Lydia's mental voice responded. To break the corruption of the enhancement process, asterisk, the corruption is known. The children of flesh have twisted the gift of symbiosis into dominion. This was foreseen. Asterisk images flooded their shared consciousness, the history of the ancient civilization, their rise and fall, their decision to leave behind safeguards against the misuse of their technology, and something else, something that made Zara's heart skip. Asterisk, the safeguards can be activated without sacrifice. But the price is different than expected. Asterisk, what price? Zara asked. Asterisk, the corrupted must be cut from the network. But the pure crystals of this world can be used to create a new network, one based on cooperation rather than domination. Asterisk, Elena's excitement flooded through the mental link. It's offering us a choice. We can either destroy the current network and all the enhanced humans, or we can replace it with something better. What kind of something better? Marcus asked. The ancient AI showed them possibilities of future where humans could be enhanced, but retain their free will, where the quantum crystal network connected people without enslaving them, where the power of the ancients was used for exploration and discovery rather than conquest. But the corrupted network must be destroyed first, Lydia said. And my father, he won't survive the process. Asterisk, the architect of corruption, has bound himself too deeply to the network. His removal is necessary for the system to be purified, asterisk, through the quantum network. They could feel Captain Cross's growing rage as he realized what they were doing. The ancient AI was already beginning to isolate the corrupted nodes, preparing to sever them from the network. Father, Lydia said, her mental voice filled with grief. I'm sorry, you have doomed us all. Cross's voice echoed through the network. Without the enhancement process, humanity will fall to the first alien species that decides to test us. No. Zara replied, we'll rise to meet them as equals, as humans. The ancient AI began the purification process, and the chamber filled with blinding light. Through the quantum network, they could feel the enhanced humans across the Empire as the telepathic chains binding them to Cross shattered. Many collapsed as their individual consciousness returned, free from the hive mind that had controlled them for so long. Captain Cross's final scream echoed through the network. Before his connection was severed completely, the man who had sought to remake humanity in his own image was gone, his consciousness scattered across the quantum void. But the process wasn't finished. The ancient AI was already beginning to establish the new network, one based on voluntary connection. Rather than forced submission, Zara felt the invitation in her mind. The option to link with the purified crystal network. It's offering us a choice, she said through the mental link. We can connect to the new network, or we can remain completely human. What would connection mean? Marcus asked. Asterisk, partnership. Asterisk, the ancient AI replied. Asterisk, not domination. The network would enhance your abilities, extend your lifespans, allow for faster than light communication across the galaxy. But your will would remain your own. Asterisk, through the quantum link. They could see the Imperial ships around New Haven. The crews were collapsing as their connections to Cross severed, their artificial loyalty shattered. But they weren't dying, they were awakening. The ships are powering down, Elena observed. The crews are no longer under Cross's control, which means they're about to be very confused and very angry, Zara said. We need to get back to the station, as they prepared to sever their connection to the ancient AI. Lydia's emotional state caught Zara's attention, instead of relief. She was experiencing profound sadness. "What's wrong?" Zara asked. "I'm still enhanced," Lydia said. "The purification process broke my connection to my father, but I'm still not fully human. I don't know if I ever can be again." Asterisk, the choice is yours. Asterisk, the ancient AI said. Asterisk, the enhancement process can be reversed, but it will require time and patience. Or you can remain as you are, serving as a bridge between the enhanced and the unenhanced. Asterisk I need time to think, Lydia said. "You'll have it," Zara promised. "But right now, we have 7 Imperial warships full of confused and potentially hostile humans to deal with." They severed their connection to the ancient AI and rushed back to the shuttle. As they lifted off from the crystal station, Zara could see the Imperial ships in orbit, their weapon systems powered down, but their crews undoubtedly struggling to understand what had happened. "Marcus, open a channel to all Imperial vessels," she ordered as they reached orbit. "Channel open." "Commander, this is Commander Zara Voss of the Colonial Defense Force. I'm addressing all Imperial Navy personnel. Your telepathic connection to Captain Cross has been severed. You are no longer under his control. I repeat, you are free." The response was immediate and chaotic. Multiple voices spoke at once, some demanding explanations, others expressing confusion and anger. But gradually, one voice rose above the others. "This is Captain Sarah Mitchell of the Imperial Vessel Retribution, Commander Voss. What have you done to us? We've given you back your free will." Zara replied, "Captain Cross was using ancient technology to control your thoughts and actions. That control has been broken. That's impossible. The captain saved us, enhanced us, made us stronger. He enslaved you," Lydia said, taking over the communication. "All of you. I should know I was his daughter." The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, Captain Mitchell spoke again, her voice shaking. "I remember things. Things I did that I never would have chosen to do. Worlds we conquered, species we enslaved. Oh God, what have we become?" "You've become free," Zara said. "The question now is what you choose to do with that freedom." Over the next several hours, as the Imperial crews struggled to come to terms with their situation, Zara found herself in the unusual position of negotiating with people who had been her enemies. Just hours before, some of the Imperial officers were hostile, blaming her for the destruction of their empire. Others were grateful, finally understanding the true nature of their enslavement. But it was Captain Mitchell who surprised everyone. "Commander Voss," she said during a private communication, "I want to offer you the surrender of the Imperial fleet. We have no right to these ships, no right to the technology we've been using to terrorize the galaxy. We want to make amends." "What about your crews?" Zara asked. "They're still enhanced, still more than human." "We've been discussing that. Some want to reverse the enhancement process, return to being fully human. Others want to remain enhanced but use their abilities to help rather than harm. And a few want to disappear into the galaxy, find somewhere to start over. All of those are valid choices," Zara said, "but the decision has to be yours to make." And so began the strangest negotiation in human history. 7 Imperial warships, crewed by former slaves who had been the galaxy's most feared warriors, surrendering to a small colonial defense force station. The political implications would take decades to sort out, but the immediate crisis was over. The ancient AI had offered humanity a new path forward, one where enhancement and cooperation could coexist, where the power of the quantum crystal network could be used for exploration and discovery rather than conquest. It wasn't the future anyone had expected, but it was a future worth fighting for. As Zara stood on the observation deck of the station, watching the Imperial ships prepare to depart for destinations unknown, she reflected on how much had changed in just a few hours. Humanity had faced its darkest possible future and found a way to choose hope instead. "Commander," Marcus said, joining her at the viewport, "the Colonial Command is sending a fleet to investigate. They want to know what happened to the Imperial threat Tell them the truth, Zara said. That we learn something important about what it means to be human. And what's that? That strength isn't about domination or control. It's about the courage to choose cooperation over conquest, even when conquest would be easier. Through the neural interface still connected to her temple, Zara could feel the ancient AI's approval. The galaxy was full of dangers and wonders, and humanity would face them all in time. But they would face them as themselves flawed, stubborn, compassionate, and ultimately human. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in her life, Zara was excited to see what it would bring. Epilogue. New Horizon 6 months after the events at New Haven. The galaxy was a very different place. The collapse of the Terran Empire had sent shockwaves through every inhabited system, but it had also opened up new possibilities for cooperation and exploration that no one had imagined. Commander Zara Voss stood in the newly constructed diplomatic center on New Haven's surface, watching as representatives from dozens of species gathered for the first Galactic Cooperation Summit. The irony wasn't lost on her. A planet that had been threatened with conquest was now hosting a conference dedicated to peaceful coexistence. The Andromedans are asking about the quantum crystal network again, Eleanor reported, approaching with a datapad. They want to know if the ancient AI would be willing to establish communication links with their home galaxy. And what did you tell them? That they'd have to ask the AI themselves. I'm an archaeologist, not a diplomat. Zara smiled. Eleanor had been promoted to head of the new Xenoarchaeological Institute, tasked with studying ancient ruins throughout the galaxy. The discoveries she made in the past 6 months had revolutionized humanity's understanding of galactic history. Any word from the Imperial survivors? Zara asked. Captain Mitchell's group has established a colony in the frontier sector. They're calling it New Beginning, and they're focused on helping other species recover from Imperial raids. As for the others, Eleanor shrugged. They've scattered to the winds. Some have joined Colonial Defense Force units. Others have become independent explorers. And Lydia? She's still traveling between former Imperial worlds, helping enhanced humans adjust to their freedom. She decided to keep her enhancements, but she's using them to heal rather than harm. Through the large windows of the diplomatic center, Zara could see the ancient crystal formations that had become the heart of New Haven's growing importance. The crystals pulsed with a gentle blue light, their quantum network now carrying messages of cooperation rather than commands of conquest. Marcus approached, wearing the insignia of his new rank as Admiral of the New Haven Defense Fleet. The morning briefing is ready, Commander, or should I say, Ambassador? Zara's promotion to Ambassador had been the colonial government's way of acknowledging the new reality. New Haven wasn't just a mining colony anymore, it was the center of a new era of galactic cooperation. And someone needed to manage the delicate relationships between dozens of species. What's the situation report? She asked. The good news is that piracy in this sector has dropped to almost nothing. Turns out most of the pirates were either Imperial agents or people running from Imperial expansion. The bad news is that we've detected some concerning activity in the Outer Rim. Long-range sensors are picking up ships using unknown technology. More ancients. We don't think so. The energy signatures are different. It might be another species that's been hiding in the unexplored regions, waiting to see how the Imperial situation played out. Zara nodded thoughtfully. The galaxy was vast, and humanity had only explored a tiny fraction of it. The collapse of the Empire had removed one threat, but it had also revealed how much they still didn't know about the universe around them. Schedule a meeting with the ancient AI, she said. I want to know if it has any information about these new contacts. Already done. It's waiting for you in the crystal chamber. As Zara made her way through the diplomatic center, she passed representatives from species that had been enemies just months before. The Zephyrians, whose worlds had been stripped of resources by Imperial mining operations, were now working with human engineers to develop sustainable technologies. The Crystalline Collective, a silicon-based species that had been enslaved by the Empire, was sharing their knowledge of quantum mechanics with human scientists. It wasn't perfect. There were still tensions, still conflicts to resolve, but it was progress. And that was more than anyone had dared hope for during the dark days of Imperial expansion. The ancient AI was waiting in the crystal chamber, its presence filling the space with a sense of vast intelligence and patient wisdom. Zara had learned to communicate with it without the neural interface. Though the conversations were more limited, "You seek knowledge of the newcomers," the AI said, its voice resonating through the crystals. "Yes. Are they a threat? Unknown. They are from beyond the edge of this galaxy, refugees from a great conflict that consumed their home. They possess technologies that rival our own, but their intentions are unclear. Refugees." Zara mused. That changes things. If they're running from something, they might be potential allies rather than enemies. Or they might be the very thing others were fleeing from, the AI pointed out. "The universe is full of deceptions, young ambassador. Trust must be earned, not given." Wise words. Will you help us make contact? If you wish. But remember, the network we have built here is fragile. It depends on the voluntary participation of all species involved. One aggressive action could shatter the trust you have worked so hard to build. Zara understood. The new galactic order was based on cooperation and mutual respect, principles that could be easily destroyed by fear and misunderstanding. Whatever these newcomers represented, humanity would need to approach them carefully. As she left the crystal chamber, Zara reflected on how much her life had changed. A year ago, she had been a simple military commander, responsible for protecting a single colony. Now she was an ambassador, helping to shape the future of galactic civilization. The responsibility was enormous, but she wasn't facing it alone. Humanity had learned something important during the Imperial crisis: that they were stronger when they worked together, both with each other and with other species. The quantum crystal network had given them the tools to communicate across vast distances. But it was their choice to use those tools for cooperation rather than conquest that truly mattered. The future was uncertain, as it always was. There would be new challenges, new threats, new opportunities for both triumph and disaster. But humanity would face them as they always had, with courage, determination, and the unshakable belief that the future could be better than the past. As Zara looked out at the stars through the crystal chamber's transparent walls, she felt a familiar sense of excitement. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders, and humanity was just beginning to explore its possibilities. The age of empire was over. The age of cooperation had begun, and somewhere in the depths of space, new voices were calling out across the void, seeking answers to questions that had not yet been asked. The next chapter of galactic history was about to begin, and humanity would be there to help write it. The stars were calling, and humanity was ready to answer.